want to take you back to the high technologies of electricity, computer, automobile, airplane, and submarine dimension that I cover page of this book. Where are these good technologies from the Egyptian time? Yes, from the Egyptian time, this is a well-known fact even to the Western governments and establishment. They are very much aware, and it's chronicled in history. Napoleon did go on expedition about 1789, and the main task of that expedition was to look for the advanced technology that we are in Egypt. So they went on expedition and went with over 5,000 engineers and scientists. In fact, almost every prominent engineer or mathematician in France was in that mission. People like Fourier, Fourier analysis, he was there. Etienne, so he was there. Volta, he was there. So almost all the elite scientists and technologists were all accompanying Napoleon on this mission. And the mission was to find the technologies that were developed by people in Egypt. And they did find them. They did find so many items. So these technologies were good.
Did you hear it? The technology, he didn't say by the Moors, he didn't say by the Arabs, he said technologies by the IGBO, technology by the Igbos. And we're going to get back to this. But before we continue with that very video there, I'm going to show you the whole video, so don't be in a hurry. Take your time, and I'm going to make sure that this very video is going to be on the highest quality as possible I can, so that this is something you can share, you can watch with your children as an African, because this is our own history. This is the real truth that was distorted and fed us with nothing but lies. Welcome back. In this very episode today, I'm about to enter a very new series that is going to be much of a benefit for a lot of us. And that very trajectory I'm about to dive into is to put a corrective measure to the distorted history that is not taught in school. And before we go, what if I told you that the Moors are lies? The Moors you've been hearing about is a lying mechanism. And I'm going to prove it to you just in another video. But before that video, a lot of things which you're reading as history today are lies. You know that? But you didn't get the proof before, because if you get the proof, then you understand that literally every other thing that the West thrive on is distortion of history and stolen identities as much as technologies. 90% of what is, that is, what if I told you that 90% of the technology that we're using today are not invented in 90s, not even in 80s, not even in 19th century, but in 17th. It goes crazy, right? And it is not even by the US. It's not even by the Greeks. The people whom you call Greeks are not actually whom you think they are. The Italians are not whom you think they are. Gentlemen and ladies, I present to you the real architect and the inventors, innovators that we have been sidelined. And these inventors are the real architect behind literally everything that we're using today. 90% of their innovation is what has been rebranded, repackaged, and hidden and rediscovered. And it's going to shock you. It's going to blow your mind. Before we go then, please, I crave your indulgence. This is going to defy everything that has been taught in your history, whether by a white man, by any historian. And the reason why I believe so is because if you let the victor to tell the story, he distorts it. But when you allow the one who is conquered to tell the story, it's going to give you line by line, nothing but honest. So before we go into watching this very video here, listen carefully.
I want to take you back to the high technologies of electricity, computer, automobile, airplane, and submarine dimension that I cover page of this book. Where are these good technologies from the Egyptian time? Yes, from the Egyptian ancient times, this is a well-known fact even to the Western governments and establishment. They are very much aware, and it's chronicled in history. Napoleon did go on an expedition about 1789, and the main task of that expedition was to look for the advanced technology that we are in Egypt. So they went on this expedition and went with over 5,000 engineers and scientists. In fact, almost every prominent engineer or mathematician in France was in that mission. People like Fourier, Fourier analysis, he was there. Etienne, so he was there. Volta, he was there. So almost all the elite scientists and technologists were all accompanying Napoleon on this mission. And the mission was to find the technology that were developed by people in Egypt. And they did find that. They did find so many items. So these technologies were looked.
Did you hear it? The technology, he didn't say by the Moors, he didn't say by the Arabs, he said technologies by the IGBO, technology by the Igbos. And we're going to get back to this. But before we continue with that very video there, I'm going to show you the whole video, so don't be in a hurry. Take your time, and I'm going to make sure that this very video is going to be on the highest quality as possible I can, so that this is something you can share, you can watch with your children as an African, because this is our own history. This is the real truth that was distorted and fed us with nothing but lies. And to prove it to you, I want to bring someone whom I have seen his quote. I have not read a lot of his books, but the West love him so much. And who is that? This man mentioned him, Napoleon Bonaparte. The Napoleon Bonaparte movement, expedition, isn't just isolated incidents, but a surgical, strategic precision expedition. And what was the mission? To go and loot literally every technology that has existed in 1789. Why they're busy fueling and using the Benin looted artifact, which is just a fraction, to fill up the voids of the mainstream media. This is hidden. Even the smartphones you're using, the computer, the helicopter, the airplane, the drones, they were there 400 years ago. It was stolen and rebranded. But let's get a little over here to Napoleon Bonaparte quote. Say, never interrupt your enemy when he is making mistakes. These are not just mere quotes. Most of these people's quotes are actually a critical reflection of what they have done in the past. What they have done in the past is what is reflected in their quotes. And most of you, I'm certain, you don't actually know that that's the reality. You're thinking it's just a quote, a motivational quote. No, it has more deeper meaning. So each time you're reading most of these ancient people of the Western people who they worship so much, you need to dig deeper where those quotes started from. Let's go further. The only way to lead people is to show them a future. Are you listening? Because by showing them a future, they will believe that you knows it all. And in knowing it all, that is where the whole thing starts from. Then a leader is a dealer in hope. That is profound. Let's go further. And here is my favorite. I have been locking this very quote for more than 13 solid years. And I ponder over it, even when I haven't actually attained some sort of a level of financial stability. I have been carrying this. And there is a reason for it. I lock on it like in this, what he said. History is a set of lies agreed upon. In these days, they are rewriting this into a different, but this is the original one. History is a set of lies agreed upon. Why did he say so? And who launched an expedition in 1789. And the core purpose of that very mission is to go and loot the entire technology of the Igbos in the Kemet. He didn't went there alone. He went there with the best elite scientists, technologists, philosophers, and you name them. And there was a war that broke out after them. They don't tell you those parts. Because at last they started fighting against each other. The France, the British, started fighting the French in order to collect some of those items, because some of them were there before. They clashed. I mean, some of them didn't get there on time. And so they started fighting while sailing back to their different destination in order to collect it. I'm going to play the video so that you can be able to understand it. So why did he say that history is a set of lies agreed upon? It is not a set of lies agreed upon by the African, because African knows how to tell the truth. But no, it is not all in all cases. Like when you talk about the 1996 coup in Nigeria, when you ask the Yoruba man, he's going to feed you lies, a bunch of lies. If you ask an Hausa man, Fulani man, he's going to feed you a bunch of lies. You know where you are going to get the truth? The Igbo. Why the Igbo? Because they are the one that the atrocity was perpetrated against. They have no reason to tell you lies, but the truth. But what about the Yorubas? They're going to tell you in such a way that you are going to glorify that the Igbos are fought for choosing to be independent, and tell me exactly how that is a crime. Now, history is a set of lies agreed upon because of what this man and the rest of the Western world has done in the past that most people are not getting informed about, like the expedition in 1789. Sorry. So that expedition in 1989, we're not taught in school. Those history are highly classified. And by coming to see this very video which I'm sharing to you today, it is not just a mere physical set. You just have to understand that truly, for once, the spiritual realm controls the physical. There are downloads. There are discernment of information that comes just above what you can understand, but it keeps pushing you. It keeps you glued and scrolling, and it links you puzzle after puzzle. Sometimes you don't even know how to harness this information, because when you start searching for it, it doesn't come. It comes by its own time, appropriate time. When you are ready for it, when you are mature for it. Does it make any sense? So he made this quote because of what happened in 1789, that they went to loot the Igbo technology. It wasn't the Moors, it wasn't the Arab, Igbos. Did it shock you? There is one very brutal reality which I've been battling with, and that reality is, what exactly was the offense of the Igbos? Why did the history, even so is distorted, between 1883 to 1907, British launched 4 brutal attacks on Nigeria. But 3 attacks out of that very brutal attack was strictly against the Igbos. The looting of the bronze, the Kumeku War, and the destabilization of the Ibino Pabi, the Archaeological Confederation. But I started searching even more deeper. Why such a devastating attack on the Igbos? And before even 1960s, there were a lot of riots in Jos that claimed a lot of lives of the Igbos in Nigeria after the British created the taboo called Nigeria, which they know that is a time bomb. It will never stabilize, it will never develop, it will never become true sovereignty, because the mixture of the Hausas that have a different ethnicity, different cultural background, and Christian is a counterweight to the Igbos. And what they did in that time has nothing to do with the Hausas. It's something to do with what the event that happens in Kemet. They met in Kemet in 1789. That in Egypt, Igbo were already waxing. They are the one who you call the ancient Greece. They are the Italians. You are going to feel the gravity of this message I'm talking about as we go along with that very video. But what happens? Something even that happened next is the 1966 coup. 1966 coup that happened in Nigeria. I've been wrapping my head around that very coup. That something is wrong about that very coup, because the framing doesn't match the evidences. The critical thinking that is behind 1966 coup doesn't match every historic document completely that they have laid there. And when I start pulling the strings on that outside the context of what the history recorded, and even following some of the trail, I started saying that the 1966 coup, the January one or the July, that created anti-Igbo pogrom. Does that ring any bell? Anti-Igbo pogrom that claimed over 40,000 lives of the Igbos. 40,000. This was broadcasted on the national TV to kill any Igbo within the northern region. And that displaced over 2 million Igbos in the north. Do you think it's isolated incident? It's not isolated incident. It was created to provoke the Igbos into seceding. And in that seceding is going to bet a war. And in that war, this same man here that was sent by British, the other generation, are going to fund the northern people and give them ammunition to exterminate these Igbos. Are you seeing the pattern? Why they are seeing the Igbo as threat? It wasn't just Nigeria that it started. The divide and rule thing is not about just the Nigeria they started. It is way deeper than that. Now, if you look at the play also in that anti-Igbo pogrom that happened in the north, pogrom, over 100 military Igbo personnel was unalive after that, within that incident, that July counter coup. Go and read it. I wonder why they still left that one there. They would have wiped it out completely, because as I'm talking to you, this history of Biafra and the 1966 coup was completely erased out of Nigerian institution, educational institution. Is that a coincidence? That a nation that is bound to thrive, that is actually built to develop, is going to remove and distort such a history from their own educational curriculum? Then you know the primary objective is not development, it's not unity, but a founded tension and conflict, endless conflict. And guess what happens? In 2026, the conflict still continues. It's never gets settled. Because the Lugard, who actually created it in 1914, created amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914, said, even before the 1914, where they have the Southern Protectorate and the Northern Protectorate, that these people are not agreeable. They are irreconcilable. How do you put Muslim and Christian in the same bucket and expect peace to be? It is impossible. How do you put people who are 400 years technologically advanced, 400 years ahead, to people who are 400 years backward in technological advancement, and you put them together, and you think there is going to be peace? There's not going to be any peace. Now, let me get to you a little bit. The 400 years technology was proven in the 1987 war that broke out in Nigeria. It is documented, but people are not tracing it, because while a lot of people are too busy battling with poverty that was created to distract people, when you have been distracted, you cannot have the time to start plotting the root cause of the very 1967, the war broke out. But before that war broke out, Ojukwu invited Yakubu to Aburi, that's a Ghana, to chart a new course that is going to create a lasting peace in Nigeria. And what was his proposal? Regional autonomy. But what exactly caused that very war there? It wasn't just because they want to have the oil in the eastern region. The British want access, and America want access in the oil in the eastern region. No. There was already a regional government, regional system of governance between 1960 to 1965. 1960 to 1965. A shy of 5 years. But something is happening within this very time that most Nigerians are not paying attention to. Nigeria currency, as far back as then, was way stronger. Economic was more stable than it has ever recorded in any history of Nigeria. So the 1967 war, the 1966 coup, was created to make sure it leads to the 1967 war. How did it happen? After the Aburi Accord in 1967, which they agreed upon, and it was successful because there is no any white man, there is no any Briton or European in that Ghana Aburi Accord. But guess what happened? Immediately, Gowon left that very meeting to Lagos, and he said it in his own word. He agreed on that very Aburi Accord of regional system of governance for the sake of peace, because in his own right mind, he wanted peace. That is literally African man. But with a touch of the Western people, they don't want peace. So immediately when he landed into Lagos, guess what happened? The secretary of this same man, Napoleon Bonaparte of England, did they call him super secretary? Influenced Yakubu Gowon, alongside with other Nigerian political elite, that if you agreed on that Aburi, that is simply a peaceful dissolution of Nigeria without war. Tell me how that is not a solution. What was the reason? Because there is a new oil boom. That is what they actually say is the new reason. But let's look at what played out after that. I'm sorry I'm diverting a little bit. I just want to show you guys something. What played out in that very war right there is that after the war, it wasn't just about the oil. It's to cause a total destabilization of Nigeria, creating a central government that give British, Northern Nigeria, Western Nigeria access to oil in the Eastern region as much as American, and therefore fracture Nigeria. Because after then in 1977, not 1967, Nigerian educational curriculum was highly influenced by Britain and America. What was the reason? It wasn't influenced for mere isolated incidents. It was influenced in order to curtail any further uprising technologically. So when you erased people's identity, when you remove their history from them to know whom they are, Now you can now bring a fresh template. Years after the Biafra War or the Nigerian Civil War ended, the Nigerian education curriculum was influenced to become Eurocentric. And inside it, there is religion influence, heavy religion influence that taught people to believe in heaven more than they can do with their hands, than the mineral resources underneath their feet. And there is also Eurocentric learning French. It could be any language, English or whatsoever, which created more barrier for people to actually learn faster. They have to learn English, they have to learn French. It's compulsory. So what happens when you wipe clean people's history and they don't know whom they are anymore? You give them a fresh template, and whatever you told them afterwards is what they are going to believe, because they don't know whom they are after complete cultural and identity erasure. Now let's go further. They prove that the Igbos, 400 years of technology in Kemet, which they're not telling you, because when that war broke out in 1967, something happened. The Igbos, the entire military artillery of Nigeria is not shared before the war broke out. It was strategic, because the British know the war is going to break out, because they know the people Igbo was 400 years before 1967. Or 300 years before 1967. They know Igbo very well, that their technological capability is more than every other race and ethnicity in the world. Igbos are, in fact, the blueprint, the foundation of innovation that taught even the entire world how to write. Civilization began from Igbo. So when they talk about Moors, it wasn't the Moors. The Moors is a facade. The Moors is a facade. Because you can't trace a Moors and say it's an Igbo tribe. You can't say it to say that it came from Ashanti tribe. You can't say it's from Yoruba tribe. You can't say it's from the Fulani tribe. You can't say it's any tribe in Africa. So by using the Moors, you completely erase the historic documented fact about the real people behind that innovation, so that they cannot track themselves back. They cannot trace themselves and originality back to history and know who they really were before the British and the Western invaders stepped in. That is a known fact. And if you're someone who knows critical thinking very well, you know that once you erase people's identity, erase their culture, you can slap anything on them. It's more like when you are formatting a laptop. When you format it completely using an OS, the only thing that is left there is OS. Every other thing is wiped clean. When you flash a phone, every file inside it lost. You start putting a new thing inside those. That is how it works. Now, when the war broke out in 1967, the Igbos have literally no Soviet rifle weapon. The entire military artillery was in the hands of Yakubu, was in the hands of Nigeria. So the British, America, and some of their counterparts were supplying the North more weapons, more ammunition. And don't forget that British are the one who actually brought Christianity, the so-called Christianity, to the new Igbo, because the old Igbo Kemet is definitely not practicing Christianity. Are you getting the point? So what happened? Igbos, even despite the fact their cultural identity was erased, because their historic document of technological prowess that the entire world has stolen was erased, but still, that is something that should puzzle people. How were they able to manufacture in just a short period of time the entire weapon that they used to fight that war? It wasn't Western education, because even from onset, the Western education that handed over to Nigeria is an education system that is actually betting quacks, charlatans, thugs, and not innovators, not thinkers. Are you getting my point and where I'm going? So how did the Igbo, with the dysfunctional education system, was able to create war machines like Ogbunigwe and other heavy machines, turned a normal daily use aircraft into a makeshift aircraft that is used for war? How were they able to do that? Except there is something about them that was not explained before the 1967, which was not even that very education, the miseducation that was brought to them by the West. So now, after now, you have understood this. We don't want to go further, but I want you to understand the strategic thing that was happening after and during the Biafran War. The war never killed them. What killed them was the blockade of access to medicine, access to food, and make them a gridlock. That is what actually considered over 3-point-something million deaths that wiped more than the half of the population that's in Nigeria out as of that very time. But something of a concern, there have never been any nation in the world at that time that did what the Igbo people did, that were able to build weapons That to the point that even at the middle, around the 1968, the Britain and the America start becoming scared that the way the war is going, that Nigeria is not really defeating, that is heavily armed, is not defeating the Igbo military. So, in order to curtail the war, they started withdrawing and placing embargo on heavy military equipment to supply to Yakubu Gowon, so that they can reduce the effect. So, because if Igbo wins, something ballistic is going to happen. The outcome is not going to be friendly. Now, Yakubu, after knowing that the Britain and the America, who were the sponsors, the architects, the people who actually put him in that power, refused giving him such weapon, he bypassed the British, America, and head straight to USSR to get heavy war machines, aircraft bombers, and others. This is pretty much researchable. I wonder why they didn't put all those so that we can actually, some of the people who are digging for fact can be able to know what happens before and after the 1966 coup and the war took place. Because when Igbo started realizing the power they had before even 1914, then it changes the entire conversation of modern warfare and relationship and how people treat them. So the invention of the Moors was to erase Igbo's previous civilization that bet the colossal technology that the entire world is enjoying today. Now, after understanding this, you can understand that the quote of history is a set of lies agreed upon is not just a set of lies agreed upon for a coincidence, but because of the stolen technology, because of what they have done in the past in Kemet, that they decided after to rewrite the history in order to hide all those evidences. That is the proof of history is a set of lies agreed upon by the West. Now let's go back into that very video, because now you have gotten the picture clear. I'm going to start it afresh.
He is a renowned medical doctor, a NASA scientist, and now the world is about to see the other side of this versatile, very versatile gentleman. As a historian of Nubian Republic, academician Prince Dr. Philip Ojerante is the author of a book, Igbo Mediators of Yahweh Culture of Life. This actually is a book series that has untaught human history as we knew it. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much. First, it's only appropriate that the viewers out there get to make you fun. They really do so. Thank you. As you rightly said, my name's academician Prince Dr. Philip Ojerante. I'm a medical doctor. I did my first degree in Moscow State Medical Institute in Russia, now the Russian Federation. Then moved to do my postgraduate in clinical Grosshaven, Munich, University of Munich. Then went on to do my postgraduate fellowship in London University, in the Department of Archaeology. And then further fellowship at Bowman Gray School of Medicine in North Carolina, Winston-Salem. So after that, then I moved on to become an assistant research professor at St. Louis University Medical Center, researching on stroke. I do a lot of work in neurosciences and neurocardiology with a lot of interest, looking at the connection between the brain and the heart. This is in a nutshell my CV. I'm married, happily married with my 3 children, Philip, Ken, and Odette. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Well, I just noticed that you used the title academician. Please, explain to the reader, what does this mean? Well, yes, I'm an academician of the International Academy of Astronautics. We hold space agencies around the world, NASA, the Japanese Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, Belgian Space Agency. All the leading neuroscientists, actually all the leading space scientists, both medical and non-medical, are in an academy that is under the UNESCO. And this academy, they call the eminent scientists. And the highest level of academic nomination is at this level of being called an academician. That means there are things in the area of space science which you are the foundational scientists that actually put it in place, or that has made it fundamental to bring in our knowledge of space science. So I'm just one of the leading academicians in the world on space science. Very amazing. You also bring title and theory. Are you a Prince? Yes, I am a Prince. I am from the Demansi royal family. This is a dynasty. The Demansi dynasty has been a dynasty that has been there for over 1,000 years. And I will explain this in more detail as we go around the whole story. But just simply said, the name means Amana. What that means in English is that they go to become kings of the indigenous people. And this is the real dynasty as we go through the story of the line of the person you call or know as David. And in Igbo we say Iwe, a man who is fair in complexion. And that dynasty spans up to the present day. And I will explain some of these intricacies as we go along the story. That's good. I know you are a medical doctor and also a NASA scientist. I had worked with you at least when you hosted the International Conference on Vision. Prince title attached to your name. Are you a prince? Yes, I am a prince. I am from the Jamanzi royal family. This is a dynasty. The Jamanzi dynasty has been a dynasty that has been there from over 1,000 BC. And I will explain this in more detail as we go around the whole story. But just simply said, the name means Amana. Is what that means in English is that they go to become kings of the indigenous people. And this is the real dynasty as we go through the story of the line of the person you call or know as David. And in Igbo we say Iwe, a man who is fair in complexion. And that dynasty spans up to the present day. And I will explain some of these intricacies as we go along the story. That's good. I know you are a medical doctor and also a NASA space scientist. As much we know. I had worked with you at least when you hosted the International Conference on Vision to Mass, the African perspective. What do you research? Yes, as a researcher, I'm a neuroscientist. That's the major interest I have, looking at how the brain works, basically, and the control systems in the brain. How does the brain control the heart? And how does the brain work within its the two hemispheres? I put a lot of emphasis on looking at the relationship between the right and the left brain. For example, one of my fundamental works was to look at the control of intelligence in the brain. I say, looked at which center, is it in the left brain or in the right brain, that controls human intelligence in men and women. One of the fundamental things we found out was that in men, the intelligence is in the right brain, while in females, the intelligence is in the left brain. So we now looked at things like facial processing, color processing, and we see the same pattern. And these investigations and these results are groundbreaking for neuroscience. In 2005, it actually redefined the entire concept of brain function. And this has been confirmed by all of my colleagues around the world, including American and other scientists from other countries. So this is the type of thing I look at. And I also have a lot of interest in looking at brain-heart connections and what we call the field we call neurocardiology. And I've done fundamental works to look at what happens to consciousness when people become unconscious, and what are the things that lead to unconsciousness. And this type of research has replicated that type of research in simulated space environment. And then in high performance aircraft, the pilots that pass out. I was able to do that at the Pentagon facility in Niagara Falls to look at what happens to F-18 pilots when they pass out. That type of research are the things I normally engage myself with. Well, let's get back to us because we've been in space all this while, right? Let us get into the title of the book, Igbo Mediators of Yahweh Culture of Life. Why did you choose such a title? Why did you choose such a title? Let us get into the title of the book, Igbo Mediators of Yahweh.
That is the book this man here wrote, Prince Academician Nzemanje. My dear, that is one of the most refreshing historic piece that I've actually come across in my entire life. And he said, Igbo, Mediators of Yahweh, the Culture of Life, Volume 2. Learn to read Egyptian hieroglyphics and UFO writings. Do you hear that? UFOs. Now, before we go into that, one of the most cooked up misconceptions about the UFO is that they are alien. No, brother, they are not alien. They are the Igbos that are still living in a higher dimension, another terrestrial that is different from our Earth. And it's going to blow your mind as we go deep into this very video. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be getting my own copy because after digesting this very video here, I am burning with curiosity to read more from this very black excellence that is hidden from 98.9% of African people. So when I come across this very video here, it is like a groundbreaking invention. Do you know what it means? It is more than a groundbreaking invention. It's like coming across Maxwell Chikumbutso. You guys saw a lot of how I displayed my energy around the Maxwell Chikumbutso self-power technology. And you can't imagine what I'm going to do with this very information here. What I'm putting out here is just a fraction. It's going to go beyond this. And as for the book, I'm going to buy every volume of that book. Because that's the first time in human history that we get to tell our story without filter, without concussion, without propaganda, without fear or favor, and saying it exactly how it happens. That it literally cooked every rubbish you have been told, brainwashed, indoctrinated by different historical professors. They didn't tell you this. There are a lot of famous Western professors, historians, which the West are queuing on paying to listen to every day. But they don't bring this kind of information out. Why? Because it disrupts and destabilizes the entire lies that this whole foundation of Western supremacy was built upon. I'm certain you can feel my energy on this very topic here. But let's go further.
Culture of life. Why did you choose such a title? Well, this book series, I hope to make it an encyclopedic series, is to tell the story of the people you call Igbo. I know our viewers might not be familiar.
You heard him. The story of the people of Igbo. The same Igbo in Nigeria. Onye Igbo na-agwa gị ife a. Ị na ihe na-ekwu. Salubwa. Whoa! In fact, I have never been happy. It's been more than a week that I had this video and something is just pushing me down each time I want to react to it. Probably because I was not ready. I was not really ready. Timing is everything. And that time most often times is not depend on you. It's not. It's not. So let's still go further.
With what the word Igbo means. Igbo is to mediate. And they're a group of people who God, in his infinite knowledge, made priests to mediate between him and humanity. And these people, they were called the chosen people. The chosen people are chosen because of priesthood. And these people are the people you call Igbo today. Before they were called Igbo, that's before the consecration of these people as a whole tribe of priests, they were called Israeli. Israeli in English means you answer.
Israeli. Oh my goodness. Israeli is now what the West have coined with different connotation to be Israel. But you can see where that word originated from. And this explains why the entire, it is not the British who is trying to exterminate the Igbos. It is the entire world. Why did I say so? Because the genocide that happened in that 1967 war in Nigeria was only compared to the genocide of the Jewish Holocaust by the Nazi. But if you look at some other context, the Bangladesh freedom from Pakistan, a lot of different arrays of them, none of them came close to the Holocaust that happened to the Igbo in the eastern region of Nigeria. But here's the brutal part. All those that have less fraction of humanitarian crisis, human rights abuses, and colossal Holocaust and genocide, they were given freedom. The United Nations was quick to sit and mediate to effectively recognize them. The entire world was very quick and swift to recognize and give them independence. But do you know where the table started turning? Do you know where things get darker? When it get to that of Igbo, the entire world collaborated together and sit. I even had a video where someone was mentioning Biafra in a conference, and the entire conversation changed. They start treating him worse than they could treat terrorists. And it kind of bets on an uncomfortable question inside me. Why such aggression? From London, from US, from any part of the world you can mention. Everyone who has embarked on trying to free the Igbos, to actualize the state of Biafra, which is the eastern region in Nigeria, for Igbo people to have their own state, has been met with a brutal silence, a devastating silence the West gives to people who are inventing disruptive invention that is threatening the entire energy cartel. Why? Because these are the people who can not just only free Africa, but rule the world, again, the way they have ruled before, without gun violence, but with peace. These people, Igbo, are the invention of the true democracy that doesn't need guns, that doesn't need firearms, that doesn't need weapons, that doesn't need propaganda. It's not ruled by one single central government, but literally everybody. Like what Muammar Gaddafi did in Libya was a fraction of the true Igbo democratic system. Even before the West gets to learn how to write, there was established democracy, not documented, no constitution, but it was there. Igbo system is a kind of system where democracy is a system where corruption is nearly impossible. Why? Because each communities are ruled by the councils made up of the elders of the community. So how do you go to create corruption? How do you start misappropriating funds in such situation? Because each representative has one of every household. And now you can understand the gravitational effect, the aftermath effect of coming to indoctrinate the world with the destructive, crazy demonstration they call politics. And what is it betting right now? It's betting endless conflict, destabilization. So in a nutshell, it's a Western tool to continue what they have done in 1789 in Egypt. Looting, destruction, causing conflict, and they are creating more institutions to keep Africa in that way. Because why? The marginalization of Igbo is not just because of Igbo. It's the entire chain, a counterweight. The marginalization of Igbo using the North and the other tribe in Nigeria is a counterweight to Africa rise to higher powers, to becoming world power. Can't you see the broader picture? Why they are busy selling you the illusion of Moors that have no traceable origin, tribe, or ethnicity. They told you they have black skin. A lot of people now these days are debating that they are Arabs. Yes, they are the Islam. Rubbish. So there is every tendency that even Imhotep is an Igbo person, because you can't have all that colossal innovation. The only one man that the Western world recognize, the Imhotep, the only black man the Western world choose to worship a black man they are worshiping. We are not talking about a black god. He is definitely an Igbo. If Igbo has been responsible for the 90% of the technology that the entire world has been rebranding and be rediscovering and call it Renaissance. Let's go further.
The Most High. And that's what you know in English as Israel. But in Igbo it's Izara Eli. You answer the Most High. So by telling their story, the Igbo mediators of Yahweh culture of life, you say it's Yahweh, but the correct thing in Igbo is Yah Ihowe. Yah Ihowe. Yah means God. Iho, the divine light. Who is to be, that is this who to be. Then here means enlightenment. So if we look at that, that would be God, who is the divine light that enlightens. So the whole title summarizes the story of the people we call Igbo, the mediators.
Igbo, the mediators.
In the book context, you did say things like Igbo people were pharaohs of ancient Egypt, kings of ancient Israel. Igbos built the pyramids and invented electricity, computer, automobile, airplane, and submarines. All these facts are they founded in the book? If that is the case, what really happened to the Igbos before we got into the details? People will now go into the details of the book.
That's a powerful one.
Yes, very interestingly, the things you enumerated, yes, the whole in the book series, as we go along the several volumes of the book, you will see that the 360 pharaohs, we call them in Igbo, Feroha, your worship of the people. We are all Igbos. They were the people who built the pyramids. They were the people who invented.
So the original name of Pharaoh is not Pharaoh, it's Eferoha. Oh my goodness, this is just so mind-blowing and mind-boggling. So they carved out, there is just too many distortion after distortion. A rape of history in order to control the world. I've never seen people that evil. I've never seen a virus of that monumental figure walking like a human being.
Right, they were the people who invented the battery circuit. I show it in the book. I actually show typical battery circuits which were invented then. I actually show the aeroplane with perfect tetrahedral structure, which has been tested by companies like Lockheed Martin. The models, they have been put in a wind tunnel and they fly. So that means even today's technology, even with the today's technology, the engineers have not even achieved this level of perfection as we speak. So the Igbos really were the kings of ancient Israel. They were the pharaohs. They were the people we know as Carthaginians. Then some of them are known as Phoenicians. So we are actually rewriting
Carthaginians. Now, when you type Carthaginians on the Google, you're going to see something more different. That is why I say, how do the English who are betting on erasure, cultural erasure, identity erasure, displacement, divide and rule, come to be the language which the history is written? You know, a lot of people, a lot of country, a lot of ethnicity, a lot of tribe that is not in conformity with what British is doing are going to be stripped off and tossed into the garbage and give you the doctored and concussion they call history. And for him, he speaks Hebrew and he understands it. And he also understands histography that gives more broader knowledge to what has existed 400 years ago that the entire world, the West, erased and made a cover-up about it. And now rewriting a new history, the lies agreed upon by Napoleon Bonaparte. I hope you can see the broader picture.
The fundamentals of the history. And there was a major stumbling block for the world not not to have known all these facts the way we know it today. And the fact is because they cannot read the hieroglyphs, which by the grace of God I can read. Of what significance? Going by what all of you said now, of what significance is the timing of the release of this book? Well, I must say here that it's providential in a way, because all what we are witnessing today, all what is going around the world tells us about an end time event. That is already clear. All what you need to know about this.
Okay, he talks about end time events here. And the first time when I actually watched this, I was a little bit struck because I'm no more Christian. I'm not a religious person. After my own encounter and how it conflicts my progress, how it obstructs my own way of thinking and fending for myself, my thriving. Yes, religion is a very big stumbling block to that. So I have to deconstruct myself from that. Now, when you talk about end time here, I was a little bit dropped back. I say, how can this information be coming from someone I so much believe in his and trusted his source of information? But here is the deeper side, because it's not at the same context the way the Western world put it. The end time is not the same with the way the Western world reframe it and weaponized it in order for control. Everything the Western world has been doing is nothing about mind games to control the people. Every one of them, words, line by line, phrase by phrase, character by character.
Look at the news and look at the Bible and look at all what has been said all through the ages. So what we are witnessing are end time events. These end time events, I'm going to explain more what these end time events are. You call it the apocalypse. But when we explain this in Igbo, Apjakola apa ose, iyi apa ose, Apjakola iyi apa ose. So what that means in Igbo is that we have brought to an end the evil of unbelief in the Almighty God. So this is a period when there will be no doubt in anybody's mind that there is God. And through that knowledge and awakening, we will now come to accept the tenets of God and live by it and end the evil that is on earth today. So this is the time. So this book is a guide so that we can travel 400,000 years back to read the very beginning of writing, the very beginning of what was archived.
400,000 years? Wow! 400,000 years. Why the West are always talking about 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and here we're talking about a whole colossal 400,000 years. This is crazy. 400,000 years. This is getting better. I mean, seriously. So, we are not just talking about shallow-minded Western people. We're not just talking about distortion. We're talking about people who can't even go back in time, because the more we go back in time, it takes them back to us. It takes them back to black people. It takes them back to Igbo people. 400,000 years. Do you know what that means? They're busy constructing the dinosaur, the age of dinosaur and all that, something that's going to make you glorify them. Oh, these people are genius. And they come here like in 2026 and telling you that the black man has a low IQ compared to that of the West. But if we look at the critical elements, the game at play here, we can see that if it is so true, why are you so scared of putting or creating a level playing field so that people can truly come out in their full capacity? From the Asian, the Russian, the Europeans, the American, and the black people and the African can be able to come at that very level playing field. And we will see who have a low IQ and who doesn't have a low IQ. But you create a disproportionate, distorted history, disproportionate system you call politics. You create economic chokehold. You create some sort of a web of cage, trap, using different institutions, the UN, the, what I call it again, the Bretton Woods institution, the democracy, the inferior education system, the inferior religion, and you come back shamelessly, hypocritically, and start saying, Africa, you have a low IQ. You have no history. Africa have no history. The same people that taught you how to write, the same people that taught you how to bet, the same people that taught you how to look like human, and in 2066, it's still very hard for you to live like human because you are more inclining to animals. Look at a lot of videos on the internet. You Western folks are treating animal more better than you treat human being. Why? Yes, he explains why you have the Neanderthal gene in your this. You have animal like pig, like a canine, like the monkey DNA in yours, and you are the one shamelessly pointing, accusing finger at Africa, telling them that they look like monkey. The Western hypocrisy is just too profound. That we have to know our own history. By knowing our own history, we stop every lies and know that there are aliens. They are the alien that is strangers to this very planet Earth. Else, explain to me why they don't have human melanin. They have animal melanin, the pheomelanin. Oh, you didn't see that coming. The pheomelanin that made the very sun that nourishes and glows your skin, that gives you vitamin D, burn their own skin. And still, they are still talking about how they are the superior race, how they are the most powerful, how they are using violence, how they are using any means necessary, the word of Nicholas Howard, to do everything possibly, everything at their possible best at their disposal to keep Africa subjugated, Africa poor, Africa destabilized for the prosperity of the entire, every other part of the continent. And that
Igbos wrote every beginning of what was archived. In fact, Igbos wrote everything down in rock paintings, in writings that you see even around you, but you can't read it. So they wrote everything down. And what this book does is to give you a key so you can also know how to read the hieroglyphics, know how to be able to explain what you are seeing, and be able to get this documentation very, very correctly. So what we are trying to do at this time is to arm everybody with the knowledge and facts.
Now, I'm certain the West are going to be really reporting this very video because what this man is trying to hand over to Africa here is the kind of power that is going to destroy the established, the so-called useless established norms that is established to keep the Western and every other one here, up here, while keeping Africa here. And no, if you don't buy that book, I am not affiliated to this very man here. But if you are someone who loves everything you have watched so far, if it is aligning with your subconscious mind, if it is aligning with your own frequency, if it is aligning with your own vibration, if it is aligning with or confirming every truth which a part of you has been crying out and yearning for more than decades right now, then God damn, you have to buy that book. I am not forcing you, all right? I'm not compelling you, but I'm telling you that this is the moment, this is the time. You have to do something and see what they are condemning, what the entire Western world are condemning about you. And they go hypocritically on the other side to start building multi-trillion-dollar industry just to replicate your features. In their own oil, their own cream they are rubbing, they have the melanin inside it to protect them, and that's what they call sunscreen. Then the natural curves you have that they envy and they castigate your full lips, they are doing more lip job here and there because their own natural one is a replica of a monkey. Go and look at it. It's a typical replica of a baboon, their own lips. Maybe I'm going to put up the picture here if I remember it vividly so you can see. But African full lips, you can see it on the Sphinx where they actually blow it out by Napoleon Bonaparte. Now you can see Napoleon play ping pong in the Egypt. It is not just a isolated incident. They just feed you the surface area information about what Napoleon did in Egypt. But I never gave you this one. They didn't give you this one because this is too ballistic for the established order that end up putting Africa in the worst state any human being, any civilization have ever done before. The Igbos were ruling Italy. The Igbos were in Italy before Italy was even found. In Rome, the same. In Greece, the same. So when I tell you about the ancient Greece, did this, the Italy, they this, they that, the Socrates, it was all garbage. It was stolen identity, stolen knowledge, stolen invention, and rewritten distorted histories to fit their white supremacy shit that doesn't have any solid evidence.
To read and understand. And once you understand, that power will now transform your life, the life of many things. Well, if the book is about belief in God and the Holy Trinity, what then is the Holy Trinity? Yes, it's very interesting, and I'm going to explain as we go along. All the English words, were formed from Igbo.
Oh my God.
From Igbo consonants.
All the English word you have known that you have been speaking were formed from Igbo. Did I need to volume up for the people who are deaf and sitting at the back seat? I need a gigantic picture for him to repeat that statement again, please. Honorable sir, please repeat that statement again.
And I'm going to explain as we go along. All the English words you know were formed from Igbo. They were formed from Igbo consonants.
Igbo
So
consonants.
if you take the word Trinity, Ato Rino Tuya. Ato Rino Tuya. Ato means three. In. Within. Three. Note in one God is Yah. So what it means that there are three persons in one God. Yes, it's not too different from our understanding today. But what actually it explains in Igbo is that if you take the three aspects of God, now God the Father, we say in Igbo, Oziri. It was mistranslated as Osiri. Oziri means the one that sends. Now, his son, God the Son, is Orisa. Orie Isa, the Almighty God's word. Then the Holy Spirit, the word Spirit was formed from Asi Aparu Ato, the one who tells you and takes to you the instructions of God. So you can see that these three are functional definitions of the same one God. He is one, but his function, to take that instruction to you, you need the Spirit. Asi Aparat. We also say in Igbo, Ama. Now, to the God's word, the word itself, as you call Jesus Christ, comes from the word Iwu Orie Edu. Iwu Orie Edu. Iwu, the laws. Orie, God Almighty, that leads. The laws of God Almighty that leads. So you see, the three functional definitions are all describing the functional states of one God. Going deeper and deeper, and I can't wait to get to the deepest. I want to take you back to the high technologies of electricity, computer, automobile, airplane, and submarine you mentioned on the cover page of this book. Where are these evil technologies from the Egyptian times? Yes, from the Egyptian times, this is a well-known fact, even to the Western governments and establishment. They are very much aware, and it's chronicled in history. Napoleon did go on an expedition about 1789, and the main task of that expedition was to look for the advanced technologies that were in Egypt. So they went on expedition, and they went with over 5,000 engineers and scientists. In fact, almost every prominent engineer or mathematician in France was in that mission. People like Fourier, Fourier analysis, he was there. Etienne, so he was there. Volta, he was there. So almost all the elite scientists and technologists were all accompanying Napoleon on this mission. And the mission was to find the technologies that were developed by Igbos in Egypt. And they did find them. They did find
the technologies that was developed in Egypt as Kemet by the Igbos, not Moors, not Arab. The truth is too ballistic, and I see the reason why most truth sayers are hunted and targeted, because it is just one step closer into deconstructing literally every garbage that you have been taught. It is just one step closer into setting the record straight and handing people over a ballistic power that they have never thought possible.
And so many items. These technologies were looted from Egypt. They, as I said, electricity, batteries. You could see within 50 years after this exploration by the French, almost everything you know of was invented. They use the word in Western literature, call it the Renaissance. The Renaissance was nothing but actually the decoding of Igbo technology that was found in Egypt. That was what the Renaissance meant. And how did this happen? They found a piece of stone. That piece of stone is called Palermo stone. That piece of stone had an inscription in hieroglyphics and Greek letters. They, ancient Greek, I will explain, they were also Igbos. So these Igbos...
Ancient Greece, you just heard it. The ancient Greece that the Western world has been glorifying for more than 200 years. The ancient Greece that they have been calling the pinnacle of knowledge. The ancient Greece that they cannot mention 5 words about technology, about innovation without mentioning are Igbos, Africa. I hope you're listening. And this explains why the entire world is bent on trying to destroy and exterminate the Igbo. There has never been any other better explanation than this. That the real originator of everything, literally, that we are using today, that is just rebranded, So even possibly, the car wasn't even invented by car Benz. It was rebranded. So even the Wright brothers, or even the American guy who they talked about, the black American guy enslaved who actually patented, who was first to actually cite about the flying airship, wasn't even the first. It was the Igbos. And this explains why the entire world hand is on deck to make sure the United Nations was compromised, to make sure that Igbo is not free. Every institution that is there that has been standing up for the oppressed, for humanitarian crisis, for human rights abuses, for genocide carried upon, every institution that is built by the West suddenly died just for one thing: when the mention of Biafra or Igbo independence is mentioned. So if you're Nigeria, Yoruba, or Fulani who is watching this, I'm certain this is going to aggravate you the more. This is even going to make you annoyed the more. Why? Because you are fighting a lost battle. And that is why I believe that literally everything that's going on in this world today, I was thinking that Igbo is the Chinese of Africa before. But that was even a wrong statement. China is just a fraction version, German is a fraction version of Igbo. And this explains why you see China being open armed to Igbos. But Germans, no. Let's go further.
In ancient Greek, wrote in scripts that you can actually relate to the letters you have in modern day Greek, Hellenic Greek. So it was possible to decode some of the writings of Igbos. So what had happened subsequently was, over these 50 years.
Another thing came to me right now, guys. So the decoding of this writing, did any of you remember when we were citing that AI was able to? That explains to me why the endless trip in the name of tourism to Kemet, even down to 2026. Every archaeology is going there. Every AI new feature, most powerful ones, is going there. The going there is not because of any other thing. It's not for tourism. It's for the other second wave of Napoleon's expedition. When they're telling you that the AI is finally decrypting the Egyptian writings, the histography or whatsoever, is the more they decode it using the AI, the more they start putting that technology that's not been fully understood, and they rebrand it as a new invention. Repackaged African Igbo invention as the new modern invention. The maglev, the magnetic levitation technology that are selling to you that is new. The drone, the smartphones. Oh my goodness. Even the development of the automobility itself, the jets, the fighter jets. And when they get to decode this, most of the secrets is hidden in Vatican. When they tell you that Igbo man is the Italian, he's going to explain it. So which means the Vatican City have every document about it. And that is also explains why even till today, why they are selling to you that Jesus is the only Lord and Savior, and the Bible God, the Virgin Mary bleached white, using hippo, is the God. They are secretly worshiping a black woman in the Vatican City. They call Black Madonna. Go and research about it. The same people who are willingly worshiping black man as their God are forcing your own people to worship the fake, the white bleached Jesus.
They were able to decode many of the technologies that led to the invention of what you know as different machines that we are using today. If you actually take the patent publication by Volta about that was about 1900, you will see that it's an exact replica of what he found in Egypt. And in my book, I put two pictures for you to compare. So, and it's so with other technologies. What had happened to the French was that even when they got these items and they were coming out, they were actually ambushed by the British, who waited for them because the British had a superior navy, naval force. So they were able to capture a lot of the technologies the French had taken. So when you look at history, you will see that some of these inventions that were captured by the British published them and claimed their originality. Some of the inventions were gotten by the French.
Oh my God, can someone help me and tell me not to faint? Can someone please help me stand up and tell me not to faint? So this is where the entire conversation about the so-called Western high IQ bullshit dropped like a bomb on the ground. The whole Western nation invention, they invented this, they invented that, the medical this, who even knows? Because you cannot build smartphone then and do unprecedented technology without having a lithographical machine. So the West was first to go there and get this. The more they decode it, the more they find new technologies. And they did something in order to protect it because China didn't go to that expedition. China was not there in that expedition. And you can see the reason why China is betting its whole ecosystem from copying reverse engineering, because they know they stole it. Oh my goodness. They stole it. And that is a so-called of their stronghold on invention. It was stolen. Stolen, now a privilege, now the high IQ. Africans, can you see the truth? Can you hear the truth? How it echoes. You know, you don't hear the truth with your ear. You actually felt it like a bomb in your subconscious mind. It aligns perfectly and it doesn't actually waver. Let's go further.
And the French published them. So this was what actually happened. It was not a matter of things were just all of a sudden in 50 years everybody was in darkness and everybody now saw light and started inventing materials. All what happened was that they found these Igbo technologies and decoded how to use them. And even up to today, if you look at some of the complex technologies we have, the cell phone, and all these things also came from Igbo technology. I will explain as we go along the Roswell accident by the UFOs, and I will talk about that. You can see also on the cover. I make
the UFOs. We are getting into uncharted territory, ladies. No, gentlemen and ladies. We are diving deep into uncharted territory.
The emphasis that even the UFOs, that is the unidentified flying objects, are Igbos who are not living in our own galaxy. They are not living in our own galaxy. They are living, they're extraterrestrials. They come in and they speak Igbo. How did we know that? Because the beings that were crashed on Earth during one of those incidents in Roswell we were able to see the writing and decode it as Igbo language, and we will show that in the book how this happened. Now let us get into the crux of the matter. Where is Jerusalem? Now that's a very interesting question. The word Jerusalem comes from the Igbo word Jerusalem. Now, I must explain this very clearly. The three letters that constitute a problem for transliteration for the Mizraite Jews and those after them was Shiri E, and Ya. These are letters that are used often in Igbo, especially the Owerri dialect. So I'm showing it. I sent you. E can mean Igbo, can mean water, and the word Jerusalem comes from that Jerusalem. Evil should not touch me. So this evil should not touch me was the name of the city, and that evil there meant abortion and contraception. Because one thing that was very distinctive about Jerusalem, which is the present day Owerri, was that you could not perform any sort of abortion or contraception there. If you did it, you were stoned to death.
Can you listen to that?
And the woman. So this was a major distinctive place on earth where there was no abortion or contraception tolerated. And you paid for your life if you ever engage in anything like that. So that was the name of the city. Now this city is what you know today as Owerri City. Now how did it become Owerri from Jerusalem? It became Owerri during the reign of the person you know as David. In Igbo is Diwedo, a man who...
Gentlemen and ladies, let me chip in something here. Now you can see why most of the things the West are doing today is just quite the opposite. This man is establishing too many information that is too ballistic for the system. Why a lot of Africans are still brainwashed going to the fake Jerusalem. Oh, this is crazy. The fake Jerusalem. And also possibly the fake Mecca. I don't know if the spelling is correct. When the Rome, Christian, the Catholic are the one that created the Islam. And you can hear them say, I am a proud Muslim. I hate Christian. It's more like saying, I hate Volkswagen, but I love Bentley. I love Audi. I love Lamborghini. It is stupidity on steroid. So, that forbids abortion. The same abortion that is glorified in the US and part of the Western world today, and it's not even a damn crime to commit abortion. They don't even have that word commit there. Because when you put commit there, then it is establishing a fact that it is actually abomination, a crime that you are committing. They thrive by distortion and turning everything against itself, against one another. That's how they thrive. Let's continue.
He's fair in complexion. Now, when a man who is fair in complexion. Now, when he was the king of Owerri, after the time of the man you call Saul actually, the correct thing, because they saw SL and they said they vowelized it as Saul. The correct thing is Isiala, the head of the land. He was a man from the present day Onitsha, Otu and Nyocha, and of the tribe of, you say in the Bible, Benjamin, Bear Njo Inem. Now, after his rule, he had the title called Owe Ele. Today is kind of mispronounced and called Owele, but his real title was Owe Ele. Now, after his reign, the reign was moved to Owerri. You know the story in the Bible about Samuel and his coronation of David as king. When it was moved, the title David took was Owe Eli, leaders from time immemorial. The title of Saul was Owe Eli, that means leaders you look up to. So he took up the title Owe Eli. That is, Eli in Igbo means from time immemorial. So when he became king of Owerri, the name of Owerri, the city of David, Owe Eli. Now, I will explain more that his compound was Ama Owen, which is all mispronounced today as Amawo, but it's Ama Owen. That's the center heart town of the town Owerri. So this city you are in right now is actually the holy city of Jerusalem. That can be confirmed archaeologically. That is also by ethnolinguistics that led us.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So for the West to shift it, that's what I talk about, the identity erasure and cultural displacement. When they finally erased it, they rewrote it and gave it a different location. People are going there for nothing, empty nothing, just to waste their money, when the real Jerusalem is right here in the eastern region. So that explains a lot. I mean, a lot. And I think it's not connecting the dot why there are too many mineral resources in the eastern region. Colossal deposit of it. Probably the God decided to bless the priesthoods, the people who are choosing to be the priest, to mediate between the people. That is Igbo people. And that is why you don't see these people hate other people. Isn't that very concerning? That among every other race, literally every other ethnicity, you can count from Nigeria to Ghana, to xenophobia or Africa, blackophobia in South Africa. There spans even more. To Europe, to China, Asia, India, they have one critical element that people has never understood, the ideology, from the past time immemorial to this day. And Napoleon Bonaparte made a mention of something of that note. Let me go to him quickly before we move further. All right? In one of his quotes, he mentioned something like that. Okay? History set of lies agreed upon. That's not even the one. Now, this is one of Napoleon Bonaparte's discovery of Igbo, and he wrote it like a quote. But its true powerful meaning spans more than 400 years ago of what he discovered. And the ripple effect and the reality of it is still down till this very day, the Igbo people. That is a description of Igbo man right here. He would have called it an Igbo man, but he chooses to call it a true man. A true man. Is there any such thing as a true man? No. So he is fighting the demon inside him and the power of established norms that took him to that expedition. And he said, a true man hates no one. And that is why when you see the Igbos traveling to the Europe, to America, to China, to Italy, to any part of the world, even down in Nigeria, in different countries, in Ghana, in South Africa, there has been just one common trace of what they are doing: rendering service. And you can't render service to people that you hate. You must harmonize with them. You must make peace with them. You must align with their rules. But you must not forget your own identity. The South African xenophobia today, based on some of the sources which I get, are actually citing that they are scared of the Igbos. When they say Nigeria is the Igbos, there are no Hausa people in South Africa. Everybody knows that. There are no much of Yoruba people in the South Africa. They are not good at traveling to go and establish business. No, they are not masterpiece. They are not entrepreneur running in their DNA. They are not technologists. They are not scientists in their DNA. The people who possesses literally all these attributes are the Igbos. I'm not saying it because I'm an Igbo person, but you should go and read a well-documented fact. Like I explained from the onset of this very video here, which is unexplainable, how the Igbo were able to build a colossal kinds of ammunitions, arms, weaponize different kinds of things, uses the very palm oil to run the aircraft during the war. And one of the institutions which they were staying and using as a pivotal handshake to do all those, guess what happened? It was carefully instructed by the same slave masters and told, go on, destroy it. Strip them off the seaport, because that is even giving them more power. Remove the one in Calabar. There are two seaports in the eastern region before, the one in Calabar and the one they now place called Port Harcourt. But they were all carved out and shut down, aside carving those oil-rich regions in order to weaken them. So when you look at the handwriting, the constraints, the marginalization that is clamping down on the Igbos, not just from Nigeria, but from the entire world, it raises a lot of uncomfortable questions. Why the Igbos? That's the question I've been asking for over 15 years. 15 solid years. And the internet could not explain to me. Every document I've come across that to show you how distorted the history is could not explain to me why there is so much hatred and target. When the black Americans, African Americans are showing the true colors of the Western cops, targeting them, I begin to see the reason there is because most of the slaves that were taken into America then was from West Africa. Huge chunk of it. And you cannot take that without Igbo inside it. You should also go and read about the Igbo landing, which also proves it. But that racial targeting, racial profiling, and re-engineering of their aspirations, imagination, subconsciously, is rooted down to Igbos. Nothing short other than Igbo. Because the British, the West knows that if these people, one of the greatest weapons you can hand over to them is not nuke, it's not missile, it's not the fake education system, but just a remembrance of whom they are. Their ancestral intelligence, which is confused for AI. Ancestral, Igbo ancestral intelligence. Ancestral intelligence is what they're confusing for AI. Because that is the birth of the entire innovation, be it AI or whatsoever. The real foundation that laid every rudiment and structures for the technology that we now celebrate, we now use it today, are coming from the Igbo. And that is what every Western nation, hierarchies, and elites knows. So the counterweight that they are using other tribes in Nigeria to make sure that this nation don't have, aside carving them into different other nations, other countries in Africa, but giving them their own freedom, can create unprecedented uprise that will hijack the world power more faster than March 5 or March 15, sorry, of your hypersonic missiles. Because when you have a certain tribe that is technologically inclined by birth, by encoded into their DNA, why is Bill Gates trying to establish a hospitals in Nigeria? Why? Nigeria and Africa possibly, but Nigeria specifically. It was to target a certain people and harvest some certain kinds of things. You're also going to hear from this very much. So let's go further. All this whole thing is to show you the whitewashing, to connect the dots. And someone said, which I believe, if you don't find something to live for, find something to die for. Both of them are equal, just in a different dimension. And they have immense power to actually allow you to see the world in its realness that cannot be explained by any other person but you. And that is going to span and boost the energy, your ingenuity, your ability to research, your ability to do something out of ordinary, regardless of who likes it or not. So the Maxwell Chikumbutso self-power technology, to me, is not just an invention, it's a remembrance. It's a download from ancestral intelligence. I've been saying this, even when I didn't even have a solid evidence like this documented fact.
To this clue, and we know that linguistics that led us to this clue, and we know that archaeologically this is correct. Where is Nazareth and Egypt, where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph went to? If you knew all this about the present day world. So where is Nazareth and Egypt, where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph went? Yes, that's very interesting because, you know, it's a very good thing for some of our viewers to look at the geography maps and try to understand the relationship with you know, between the cities mentioned in the Bible. If you go to Israel today, or if you look at your map, you will see that the city called Nazareth is 300 miles away from Egypt. 300 miles. Does that look like a place Mary, who is heavily pregnant, Joseph, at that time will run to? So of course not. It's absurd for anybody to think about that. Actually, what makes sense is that Jerusalem is just next to Nazareth. Even if you look at it today, it's almost 40 miles away from Nazareth. So it doesn't really make sense that the present day geography of the state of Israel is correct. That's not correct. What is correct is that the city called Jerusalem, which is Owerri, is just next to a place you call today Nazareth. That word Nazareth came from Na-ezere Ota. Na-ezere Ota came from the time when Herod, the man you call Herod, actually in Igbo is Ahorodisi, the chosen one at the top. He was the Roman prelate here in Owerri. So what he did was, when he heard about the birth of our Lord Jesus, he ordered his people to go to that village that was purported to be the village of Jesus, which is just outside the Owerri here. It's only about 4 kilometers away. To go there and slaughter all the children 2 years and under. Now, the mention of 2 years is very important because when the Romans were here in Owerri, they enforced a one-child policy. And every 2 years, they had a census. And that census was to count father, mother, and child. If any family were numbered more than 3, father, mother, and child, then the extra child was slaughtered at the gates of Jerusalem. And there were approximately about 300 gates here in Owerri. Surprisingly, the only time since after the Romans were here, gates were built in Owerri was the one built by the present governor in Imo State, Owele Rocha Sokorocha. When he built the 300 gates, they were about the same locations that they were during the time of the Romans here. And at these gates, the children who were extra from the family that numbered, maybe your family had 2, that child will be slaughtered at the gate. That is why you see the section of the Bible, they said that Raquel was shouting, in the voice shouting in Ramah, and saying that her children were no more. Now, what is that about? Archaeological, they were pleading to God Almighty. Oramaho, it is painful to me. So when the Mizraite Jews saw the consonants, they just vowelized them, Rama and Raquel. But actually, it was the women who were pleading to Almighty God that this was very, very painful. So, because of this, Jesus and Mary and Joseph had to situate themselves outside the gates of Jerusalem. That's why they were in this place you call Nazareth. Nezerepota. Nezerepota. So, to dodge the arrows of the leaders. Nezerepota.
Bro, this is way too deep. Something they have cut off, carved out, distorted out of the Bible. And that is why I started having a problem. Something inside me, I was at the point in my life was fighting a war. And the war is not with my environment, it's not with my neighbors, it's not with the West. It was within the forces, the demons these people created. And I have to make a brutal decision. When I read the Bible, I start having a conflict of interests. I start having a fight internally within myself. So I was fighting to actually establish a solid fact that doesn't conflict my own inner voice. And that is where I was finding facts inside the Bible, but I'm still finding another weapon that is being used to cage more than a whole lot of 1.3 billion population of Africa. So it's at the point it become a very subject of debate between me and my immediate family. I'm not talking about my own family. I'm talking about my relations, my brothers. And I told them that, look, I am no more a Christian. I am no more a religious person. I'm going back into my roots. Whichever things that my ancestors has practiced before, I want to study and understand how they work and go back in those. The importation of white God and white literally everything is not the way, the true foundation for development. Because there are different checkpoints, different chokeholds, different institutions to keep us here. And Nicholas Howard explains that a lot. So Nicholas Howard word is not just a word that you just listen to and say, okay, he just said it. No, it is a collective agreement and decision of the entire Western world and everyone else aside Africa. So you should understand, when Professor Nicholas Howard from Economic Institution is speaking, it is not just a sweet statement. It's not just a nonsensical statement. It is the blueprint of the West to make sure that there is no African uprising or Africa going to have the monumental power which they have. But the Chinese partnership that's about to span to Africa right now, or to Nigeria by extension, I'm not sure the Western geopolitics will allow that to happen, because China, Xi Jinping is talking about actually sharing technologies, sharing literally everything with Nigeria. Why such a change? Why such a move? Why such a decision right now? And if you want to understand that, you have to understand that when you have a big enemy to fight, like the Europe, the America, which China is having right now, the alliance with Russia, which China is having, and North Korea is not enough. You need more people. And trying to anchor Africa and Nigeria is strategic because that is a very colossal resource nation that is harboring over 70% of the entire African rich mineral resources. So China anchoring their hand with Nigeria is strategic in order to have upper hand with America. China has been buying gold, over 2,000 tons, for more than 10 decades right now in their bank. And they are implementing a gold-backed currency. And they are now in 2026 anchoring their own, trying to share technology, something the West has never wanted to do, that only Russia is doing with the Sahel states. Because the Russia knows that you cannot leave a catfish inside a pool of crocodile and nurture it how to combat a crocodile. You have to take it out of that place. So trying to teach the democratic system, who is a tool of Western government for perfect destabilization, and you're trying to teach them, share knowledge secrets with them, it cannot work. They have to have the backbone to get rid of that very system and come to a same level playing field as Russia. If you know Putin, you know that he's an ex-spy, KGB of Russia. And that is not democratic system of governance he's practicing, which the US is against. So the China is trying to expand their alliances. And in that alliance, they can have more powerful ground. And if Africa can be able to accept that and toss away democracy, then it changes everything. And the US is not going to find that likely.
The whip, Raquel was shouting in the voice shouting in Ramah and saying that her children were no more. Now, what is that about? Archaeological, they were pleading to God Almighty. Oramahu, it is painful to me. So when the Mizraite Jews saw the consonants, they just vowelized them, Rama and Raquel. But actually, it was the women who were pleading to Almighty God that this was very, very painful. So, because of this, Jesus and Mary and Joseph had to situate themselves outside the gates of Jerusalem. That's why they were in this place you call Nazareth. So to dodge the arrows of the leaders. So that's why you see the word Nazareth. And Jesus would be born in a place today is called St. Jude Catholic Church. The premises of that St. Jude. That place is called Ebelebe. Wonders have happened. That's even to this day, it's called Ebelebe, though the locals might not know why. But because the cattle used to graze there, you would ask yourself why about December 25th in Israel, where it's obviously very cold, where cattle will be grazing outside. Because it didn't happen there, it happened right here. That was the reason why you have that birth of Christ that occurred just next door in Nazareth. And the place you mentioned, Egypt, Abala, they ran to a place, Yaapota. So when they saw the word Abala Yaapota, they used the suffix to say one ran away to Egypt. But what it meant was that they went to a place, Abala, which is, we call it Abala today, which is next door to the village next to Ora in Nazareth. And they went to a small village there called Umwekweze. Umwekweze is the children where he dodged the terror. And this was exactly what happened. So much about Nazareth and Nazareth. What were the real names of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus? Yeah, that's very interesting. The real name of Mary, her name was Amara, the Grace, Amara. And the people would call her Amaraya, that is the grace of God. So when it's written, you will see M-R, which the Mizraite Jews, who were white Hellenic Greeks, but they were moving around with Igbo priests. After the slaughter of the Igbo, they were the only white people who really knew some Igbo. And they were the people who were now translating the Bible. So and the Igbos only wrote in consonants. So they never, you have to know the language to pronounce any word. So they found the consonant. They now found M-R, which they vowelized as Maria. But the correct thing was Amara, grace. Amaraya is the grace of God. So that's why you also see in other texts M-R-Y, which was vowelized as Mary. But that's her real name. Now, Joseph is a little more complicated because the people called him Onye Oche Eso Afo, the person that accompanies him to go out. So he follows, they were referring to Jesus following Joseph to go out because Joseph was a sculptor, was not a carpenter, he was a sculptor. And so was Jesus a sculptor. So they carved things, and which we'll talk about, you see, as an Igbo sculptural writing. So the locals called him Onyo Jesafo, J Eso Afo. He will give you the consonants JSF, and that's how they vowelized that to get named Joseph. But that's the genesis of his name. Then Jesus himself was called by Owerri people Mano Elu. Mano Elu, a person from above. So that was how they vowelized that to get Emmanuel. But the thing was somebody from above, Manuelu, because the Igbos said Mano, but Owerri people said Mano. So that's Manuelu. Then he was also called Yahoshua. That's where you get the word Yahoshua, but it's Yahoshua. God's chosen one from the world. Now, the Onitsha dialect, which is another predominant dialect in Igbo, called him Ya Si Osa, God from the masses. And that was vowelized YSS. So that became Jesus, and from there, Jesus. So this is how the names came about. If the Romans were here, the Greeks were also here. What did the Greeks and the Romans do here? Yeah, that's a very interesting story. Actually, in this area of Owerri, which is called Ikenebu, was actually a major place where the Roman garrison was located. What happened, and we'll go through this as we go through the series of the book, was that the Igbos were first everywhere. They ruled everywhere in the world, and we'll go through that. And they were the Greeks. They called them the Attic Greeks, the Black Greeks.
Igbos were the Greeks. Do I need to volume up higher for a lot of people to listen to that again? Igbos were the Greeks that the West cannot do without. They can't talk about Western civilization without the Greeks. Now you are hearing the fact. We're talking about archaeological evidence, not the Bible storytelling, the distortion part from King James Version and the rest of their co-conscriptees. Igbos were the Greeks.
They were the Greeks. Ogorike. So that's the district of strong people. And they lived in the Arctic. And developed a very advanced civilization. But during their fall, and we will talk about the facts that led to this, when they fell, they ran back to the promised land, which is in Igbo, and we will talk about that. And the people who conquered
the promised land, the Igbo land. The promised land is the Igbo land. Igbo, why you are busy traveling to everywhere to find greener pasture? Why you are busy? I see the reason why. Now explain something what was happening during the 1967 and 1970 and afterwards, that when the war with the Igbo, the extermination of the Igbo that lasted 3 years, that killed over 3.5 million Igbos in the eastern region, they did something very, very important. Yakubu did something fascinating. He carved out every other regions, every other Igbo ethnicities, and keep just the pure Igbo, like the now Bayelsa, the Port Harcourt, the Ogoni, the Ikwere, the Efik, the Ibibio. Look at their facial structure. Look at their culture. The Tompolo associates and the Asari Dokubodem. Look at their facial structure, because that is what's going to tell you their genetics. Look at their culture. Look at the Benin culture and the rest of them. And you can see the interrelation. If you see an Efik man, an Ibibio, and the rest of them, and they don't look like an Igbo person, the Deltas, the one they call the Deltas, Anyoma, most of them are even bearing Igbo name and still denying to be an Igbo. I'm certain when they hear this when they watch this very video now, they will have a brutal shift. So if you are someone who knows them, because I've worked with some of them before, and it was did on a purpose, carve them out, let them deny that they are Igbo, so that they don't become the sacrificial lamb that they used to sacrifice to keep Africa down, which they use Igbo. And you are hearing him saying this. We are talking about archaeological evidence, things that were written in Kemet, that the West knows, that they are tripping every minute as we talk, and they tell you it's tourism. It is not tourism. It is to decode what the Igbos has done. Igbo's leadership that spans several thousand years ago, that the entire world is enjoying now, and demonizing them. So whenever you see the West trying to demonize a certain people, I want you to go deeper, dive deeper above the mainstream media, and you will start uncovering a colossal evidence and details. And when you see them, it is shocking, and you will see the link, the connecting puzzles that link up their fear and why they are trying everything to suppress them, to marginalize them, using any means necessary, because they thrive on what? Division and chokehold, causing conflict and distortion of history. That is whom they are. That is their critical makeup of their own DNA. They find it so irritating when people are at peace. They find it so discomfortable when everything is moving without a gunshot, without gun violence. And they are fooling everyone to believe that it is it is the Moors that built the Europe, that ruled the Europe. Because in the Moors, they hide every identity. They erase every cultural lineage and linkage to it. And still yet they are shutting the Vatican hidden archive from the public, because they know the truth they are not telling you is hidden right in there in Rome. So the brainwashing is the new chokehold and different institutions which they bet. When they decide to start compromising the system they set in place, which most of them is not primarily exactly what they told you it is, then it raises a lot of questions that goes beyond what they told you.
And then, led by Antiochus, pursued them down to Oweri, because all the leaders, that's why you say leaders from time immemorial, all the leaders gathered here. So they now pursued them and occupied this place. So when they were here, what they did was that they destroyed most of the synagogues, what you know as synagogues. Asiya, Ano, Ago, Ogo. If you talk to God, you stay and make divinations or pray. So these were destroyed and they replaced them with monuments where people should go and pray. And you will see in this area called Ikenebu, there is one which is located at the Mbari. We call it Mbari, that is for the people to survive. So they marshaled the people who lived in this area of Oweri, Ikenebu, Keanebu, those to be killed. They marshaled them. They were mainly of the tribe of David, Dewey. They marshaled them to the temple and told them to prostrate.
David, from the Igbo word Diwetu. Oh my goodness. Let's still proceed.
Before the Greek emperor, the image of the Greek emperor, the carving, the wife and the child. In fact, I have some pictures from the 1920s that still showed the Antiochus image, the wife and the child, painted with white clay. So they told the Oweri people to prostrate and worship there. The Oweri people refused. And they slaughtered them one by one. That was how this place got its name, Kialego, those to be killed. And when they slaughtered them one by one, the people called this place where the slaughtering went on, Mbare, for the people to survive. So
now you can also see everything the Western world are doing today, they are copying it and whitewashing it from Igbo. Igbo are not giving name just for any name. So you that is giving your children white name, like Shem, Bush, Van, Douche, Dash, useless names. Igbos are giving their people places, names that are strategic, that have original connection, strategic connection. That is exactly what the West are doing today. And if you check different brands, it represents something that is just more than a name. And this very context here explains explicitly why the British expedition in the 1883, the Ekumeku War, to desecrate a lot of Igbo powers, and the Achological Confederacy, as they call it, because it's more like trying to rebuild those system and reconnecting back to their God, to the Igbo God. Let me lecture you a little bit about the Achological. If you know what is the God that settles every dispute. It's like the political master. Every case, every problem, every ethnic, some sort of conflict within that's arising within the eastern region is taken to that place, and that is the final bus stop. And they bet on destroying it. It should tell you that something monumental is happening in the eastern part of Nigeria. That the entire world, whenever they have any discussion in their secrecy, like the one in 1885, the Berlin Conference, or the 1944, the Bretton Woods Institution in Hampshire, they reflect on the eastern region more than they reflect on entire Africa, because that's the powerhouse of Africa. That is the powerhouse of the world. That if they left them to develop with that resources that they have, this is going to go ballistic. And that explains why Enyimba Abbasity is still waxing more than any part of Nigeria. I was thinking that they are copying China before, and I never knew. Yes, they may be copying China now because the real knowledge which they were, the founder, the original architecture of it, was not actually stolen. They are the one who are the mastermind behind it. So when you erase that and feed them any template, just like I explained previously, they have no any other option because they have lost track of whom they really are originally.
Their heads were carried and taken to the place we call Ondo Okorisi, which is near the river area you call Otamere. We'll talk about that.
This is verifiable. He's mentioning, he's giving names, he's giving timelines when these very things happen. And he's backing it up with archaeological evidence. So what more do you need, Africa? I think this is one of the most brutal part of my journey for awakening and to enlighten Africa, to remind them of whom they truly are and never accept the campaign, the brainwashing, the whitewashing campaign of the West. Because if Igbo is allowed to thrive, I bet my life with it, no African is going to travel to any part of the world, because the rest of the world is going to be copying what is going on in the eastern region. And that is why that war was there. It was to destroy and castrate Igbo from moving. If it is just about the unity, why over 60 years now, Nigeria is still looking like a chicken feed? Why over 60 years now, Nigeria has not attained any positive or measurable growth? No economic stability, no political stability, no educational reforms, nothing. It's just functional as extraction point. And every single year is getting worse. Because why? The real people who should be able to be given power are stripped of that power and given to people who are going to be playing loyalty in exchange for the power that's handed over to them.
So this was what happened. Then the Romans conquered the Greeks in their wars in Europe. So the Igbos of Europe, the Itilisi, they call them the Italians. But they all Italy.
The Itilisi, that's the people you're calling Italians today. They are the Igbos. The Roman conquered them.
See, that means they are people of black hair who were the original inhabitants of the place you call Orioma, the god's temple. So when they overcame the Igbos there, they also pursued the Igbos to the promised land and conquered Antiochus. And when they conquered Antiochus, they now took over this place. That was a little bit of the history of what happened.
I recall as a child having noticed this Roman gladiator kind of hairstyle. Where actually did that come from?
Yes, that's very interesting, because our people did see the gladiators, the Roman gladiators. That was way before the British came here. And the gladiators wore this type of hair, and they made hair, and there were several hairstyles, even with the the normal African way. They braided it in such a way that it looked like the gladiators. And this was because for a very long time, they still kept the memories of the Roman gladiators who were like terror among the people here. As I said, the Roman gladiators were the people who accomplished all these, after the Greeks, they accomplished all these murders of the people. The Greeks, I just want to mention here, when they killed the people were called Deme Eme Aka Akebe. Eme Aka Akebe. That means they were forced to bear witness. So this is what you have in the Bible called the book of Maccabees. Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2. Deme Aka Eme Aka Akebe. That means they were forced to bear witness to the faith.
Wow.
And that's...
I don't know if I captured that correctly.
Way they braided it in such a way that it looked like the gladiators. And this was because for a very long time, they still kept the memories of the Roman gladiators who were like terror among the people here. As I said, the Roman gladiators were the people who accomplished all these, after the Greeks, they accomplished all these murders of the people. The Greeks, I just want to mention here, when they killed the people were called Deme Eme Aka Akebe. Eme Aka Akebe. That means they were forced to bear witness. So this is what you have in the Bible called the book of Maccabees. Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2. Deme Aka Eme Aka Akebe. That means they were forced to bear witness to the faith. And that's the whole story of these families and what happened. It's actually in the Bible.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, thank you for joining with me into this one of the world's greatest adventure to uncover the plot, the very chains that was used to destroy Africa and keep Africa in a hamster wheel roller coaster of endless destruction, conflict, tensions, on inagreeable settling of dispute, divide and rule. Now, here is another thing which I want you to remember when he was talking about the hair. So the hair wasn't just a style in the Igbo system before this very moment. And you can see where the wars that they rage against different people, the students in the school, when you have a kind of hair like mine, or locks, or a different kind of pattern, all those were butchered out of the system. All those were erased. And if I could go a little bit back, I think I can be able to find something of note of that very kind. Let me see if I can be able to find it, because I wish I could be able to find it. That would have made a whole lot of sense, so you can understand where we have been. Okay, because I couldn't be able to find it here, I'm going to add it at the end part of this very video somewhere here, so that you can see different hairstyles that Africa had before. So those hairstyles were actually a memory to remember something that has happened here before. It wasn't just for makeup, it wasn't just for beauty, it was more like a map. It's more like something of a remembrance, just like he mentioned here. So whenever they want to crucify you for wearing a hair like me or your children or anybody, or planting your hair while allowing the Europe to bear theirs, it's not called bushy hair, it's not any other hair. You should remember that it's linked to our history. They are remembering something their ancestors have done. Now, in order to actually conceal all those, they are giving their kids the whole world of library. But it's not every information they're giving to them. There are classified information that even the certain kind of Europeans are not allowed to access, that is only kept for the elite. These are the bigger secrets they harvested from our own knowledge and kept away from every others. And in there, they wrote strictly how the entire world is functioning today. The blueprint of the entire world, how it's functioning, is written. So those books are classified. It may be in Vatican City, I don't know. but it may be in one of the biggest European libraries, but finding them is gonna take a significant effort and search. So while you're seeing a lot of AIs, we are thinking that the AI will be exposing some of those things, but no, AI is only showing you surface, just like 0.001% of what was introduced or saved on the internet space. So guys, I'm gonna stop right here. Thank you for watching. It's been a whole lot of 2 hours, near to 30 minutes. Thank you for joining with me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And this video will not make any impact if you do not share it to other Africans. I'm not talking about even the Europeans. No, we are not just at war with them. We have to decolonize ourselves first before we start taking it outside. Before we start showing whom we really are, going back in time to our own cultural identity and culture which they try to erase, and start off from there. That's the only way we can be able to liberate ourselves. One last thing, they know very well that our system is very powerful, and that is why we are being pushed towards the Christian religion side, because there is literally no power there. There is power there. Nigeria has been praying for more than 50 years right now for Nigeria to get better, and it's not getting better. Doesn't that tell you that something is wrong? And most of those leaders are sworn in using Quran, and like I told you, Islam was an institution from Roman Catholic to fight a certain narrative. And now when you're using Bible and Islam to install people, the evil the politicians are committing is still hitting the roof. They are no respecter of your own religion. Their goal is simple: pull everything, keep it for yourself, and use it elsewhere, but not for the development of Africa, except you decide to be the Gentiles and do otherwise. And the West will start seeing you differently. But aside that, if we connect all the dots together, we can be able to see one very truth that is very glaring above every other, even when it is not in the archive. That it's rare to find one president in Africa, one governor that is sworn in using the deity, the oracle in their land. Because once you do that, it changes the entire geopolitical war. Because that president, that governor is not going to be fighting with you. You don't even need to remind him. He's fighting with the gods itself. And you don't need protest. You don't need to canvass on the evils the IMF are doing. You don't need to police him. You don't need to criticize him. It is left between him and the gods, those gods that are incompromisable. And that's why the Europeans were bent on destroying those gods and the shrines in the eastern region and most part of Africa, because that's the only way they can be able to neutralize it. Because once your leaders start going back to getting sworn, taken oath by them, a civilian can start possessing a power of a soldier, can do only things that will benefit the entire people and not a very selective few. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. And this very man here, you can go to his channel to view more. We put his name right here. And the book, don't forget it. This is the great time to awake. This is the great time to reclaim our identity and our rightful place. Thank you for watching.